Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Cloudy with a Chance of Insights, the bi-weekly podcast all around the Microsoft Cloud, from Azure through M365 to Dynamics Power Platform and Copilot. This week, David and Cyrus have got quite a long list of topics that they want to cover off. So this might sound like a little bit of me reading a shopping list out, but bear with me as I read through what we're going to be talking about this week. So Cyrus is going to start with Security Copilot being bundled in with Microsoft E5 licenses. Entra steps with Agent ID for AI agents and synced passkeys. Purview's new DSPM unifies data and AI risk management. Sysmon becoming native in Windows, and Intune goes AI first. And David has got AVD on Arc, so managed hypervisors, observability, a general discussion on WorkIQ he wants to kick off, which is interesting. And interesting. This is what I mean by we don't prepare and everything. It's so he wants to look at going to Agent 365, and I think I need to put a link in to one of the episodes up there to point us back to where we discussed this previously. And I'm going to talk about a experience I've had over the last couple of weeks, which the guys know about because I actually mentioned it in the green room 2 weeks ago, which was my experience in vibe coding. Although technically I don't think it's actually vibe coding, because in my head vibe coding is sort of sitting there with, like, I don't know, Copilot Studio and telling it to do things, whereas I am technically using VS Code and doing React and Node stuff, which I'm not sure is technically vibe coding. But anyway, seeing as we have got a packed range of topics to cover off, I'm going to pass across to Cyrus so he can kick us off with Security Copilot.
Thank you for the trust. It's very dangerous to pass the mic first to me, especially, like it's 1 year we did this podcast, and we have now the Ignite that kicked in. So it's a very dangerous moment, because when we have few subjects, we can digress. Now you have too many subjects. And I know that already some of mine overlap with both of yours. So I'm going to try to avoid to dive deep in those and have a discussion after with you. So the first one, I think, Richard, you were the first person to send me that information. And I didn't believe you. I thought what was again, a Microsoft marketing thing. When you mentioned that Copilot will be, Security Copilot will be for every E5 licenses. And this is, for me, the most exciting news. The other one I will share at the end. So Security Copilot is now included in all the E5 licenses at no extra cost. And I was checking if it's true, and because they were talking about every 1,000 users who have E5, you have 400 SKUs, and I will explain what's a SKU just after. But so I thought it was only for big companies, but no, actually every tenant, even with one E5 license, will have access to Copilot, to less SKUs, but will have access to that. So instead of treating Copilot as an expensive add-on, now you have a shared pool of security compute units. So that's what I called SKU, that power agents embedded directly inside Defender, Entra, Intune, and even Purview, as we'll discuss. Practically, that means that Copilot isn't one portal. It's there to summarize and triage incident in Defender XDR, tune condition access, and access reviews in Entra. For me, that's my favorite one of my favorite one, because when you have the access, you have a user that can't access anymore to his emails or whatever. You have to go in different logs, and now you can just, if you have E5 licenses, you can really be entitled and just ask in plain English language, say, what happens to John Smith? And he's going to check everywhere with the context and say, someone created a new conditional access and block everything. Sorry, I'm digressing already. You can also help with data investigation in Purview, which is obviously extremely hype now, the topic of AI security. And I'm sure David is going to talk about observability. So that's one of the big area. And also assist, for example, with configuration checks and troubleshooting in Intune, which I will come at the end. On top of that, Microsoft is shipping baseline security mode and a new security posture experience that gives you a guided secure by default configuration for Microsoft 365. And over time, across Entra, Purview, Intune, and more. You get what if simulation before you flip a switch, so you can raise your baseline without breaking the business. So that's something that is from the admin portal, the Microsoft 365, and it's there, and you have now the assistance of Copilot to go beyond that. Another one that was really interesting for me is the Defender for Cloud is now deeply integrated into Microsoft Defender XDR portal. And a big shout out to Richard, because I remember we had a discussion last year or 2 years ago about the future of Defender. And you were saying that probably Defender will ingest Sentinel. And I remember that no one believed me when I was discussing that with different people in Microsoft, MVPs, they always get upset. They say, no, don't touch Sentinel. Defender is Defender, Sentinel is Sentinel. But we can see now, you were right, Richard, that Defender is not ingesting Sentinel, but it's ingesting Defender for Cloud, which at the first place, it was a bit weird to have it separated, because in every client discussion, it's something that can create like a, not friction, but break the added value, one ecosystem to rule them all. So Defender now is moving officially to Defender XDR, at least in preview. That means that all your KNAP views of the cloud posture and your XDR view and threats now live in the same place. And so it's helping the SOC. A slightly smaller announcement that I actually think is a huge news for defenders is Sysmon is coming natively into Windows 11, and I'm sure you all wanted to talk about that. And for me, it was nice news, but I stupidly thought that, yeah, it's just an installation thing, so it's installed by default. So what's the problem? Actually, no, it's going beyond that. And I learned that from someone called Ofer Shezaf. Sorry for the name pronunciation. He's working for Microsoft as a Sentinel expert, I think. And he was talking about ASIM. So I remember ASIM, but I didn't really know what it will impact. ASIM is the Advanced Security Information Model. So how it works is when you have Sysmon built in Windows and ASIM built into Sentinel, you get in simplified onboarding, one normalized schema for endpoint events and much richer telemetry. So for example, process activity, file creation, even clipboard events and more. Because of Sysmon, you have those extra enriched events in Windows. And because Sentinel works with ASIM properly, sorry if I pronounce it badly, and it's natively working with Sysmon, you have native enriched view. So I thought it was really cool, because I always said, okay, Sysmon is there, but it's not just that. Okay, next part is Entra. At Ignite, Microsoft formally positioned Microsoft Agent 365. So David will talk about that. And Entra Agent ID as the control plane for AI agents. Entra Agent ID gives every agent, whether it's built in Copilot Studio, Microsoft Foundry, or other ecosystem, a first-class identity with lifecycle, policies, and access control. Just like a user, and we discussed that before, you get now an inventory for your agent fleet, a governance over what data and API each agent can touch, and protection like prompt injection, filtering, and shadow AI detection. And so that's I think David will talk about this. The other things about Entra that I really liked, because it was concrete for the first time, it's the self-service account recovery using verified ID. And this example was that until now, if someone lost all the methods of connection, for example, no phones, no app, no email, and I'm I'm always afraid of that. When I create a passkey and I'm like, okay, what happens? And you have to annoy the support. You have to call them. It's painful tickets and help decks, sending a new phone, whatever, or tap temporary access code, blah blah blah. So now with the new account recovery experience, user can prove who they are with a government ID and the verified ID kicks in. So you have like a face check, and you can do a live check also of your face, or you can also share your government ID, passport or driving licenses. And there's no more password reset over the phone or guessing HR question. You don't have to say what's your favorite pet or whatever. And now it's really automated, and that's a good thing, because they were talking a lot about verified ID. Moving forward, I was about to talk about Purview. Sorry, there's a sound from you again, David. Sorry, forgive. There's a Purview DSPM, but because I think it overlap, I'm going to not digress into this one, but just a short news about the DSPM is that they had a different portal for DSPM Classic and DSPM for AI. So now you have one place, one portal, and you can navigate through simple question instead of going to this is 400 policy you can automatically enforce and harden. Now it's more like, am I compliant with checking how Copilot is used, etc. So it's all in this single portal, and it's more you navigate that through simple questions. The last one, which is for me my favorite, maybe not for everyone, but for me it's my favorite news, is about Intune. We talk about Security Copilot is embedded into different services, including Intune, and so now you have like Intune specific agents that was introduced, like for example change review agents and policy agents. So what is it? You have, for example, review and explain policy change before you deploy them. That's very interesting because you have the context. Second one is help you generate or adjust configuration policies. The first day I was testing Security Copilot last year, it was I think in April, I remember two things I asked. Can it generate policies, and can it understand policies? Answer was no, and it was not in the roadmap. So not only is it not in the roadmap anymore, but it's already in the Security Copilot, and it's not a different portal. It's natively there. And that's for me my biggest favorite one, because you can literally say, I want a new in Entra, I want a new control access that does this and not that. Or I want a profile for this VIP user, but make sure that XYZ is installed. So that's very excellent. And you can also automate that instead of just relying on your different JSON files. So you have also the third one is assist with secure device offboarding, so you don't miss cleanup steps. For me, it was a bit, okay, why this is important. And I read that actually PCI, HIPAA, all these governance compliance that you have in place, they require that you know what's in your tenant and what's not used anymore. So for small tenants, we don't care because everyone knows which device is in spare device, etc. But for big companies, that's one of the checkbox when you have auditors coming. So you don't need a script anymore. You can automate that. So you don't need to rely on JSON and like these different catalog entries. I'm moving fast because there's just the last one. So it's still in Intune. Now you have like a new tab that will be ingested is admin tasks. So it's a centralized queue for high priority items. So elevation requests, we talked about multi-admin approvals before, security critical tasks. It will all be in the same place and it will be visible. That's excellent. Maintenance window deployment that give you more structured way to do control, phase rollout. So we have Windows Auto Patch. Now you have the same principle with Ring for policies. But my favorite news was like, I saw it like yesterday, literally yesterday, and I know it was announced a long time ago. It's the Windows recovery and rebuild. So Windows RE, that's my worst nightmare in Intune. So when you have a device that you try to remote wipe, and the user says, no, Windows could not reinstall this device, and you have this stupid generic message that say, press OK, and then the Windows device was wiped, a factory reset, but it's also out of Intune, is lost. So you have to send people, you have to reimage it, and the user is losing his mind, why, etc. So now you can trigger Windows recovery environment wipe and a cloud rebuild. So from the cloud, you can reinstall the drivers for that device and do a real factory reset. And I have today in my own personal library so many scripts for HP, Dell, Lenovo, Apple, for all this. I mean, Apple is different, but for reinstalling the drivers per device, and it's really a mess. But I became really good at that because you have to be. Now it's almost a story of the past. So that was my favorite news. So I'm going to stop here, but I was about to talk also with you about Azure Local. I'm really interested if you guys have heard about this, and yeah, let's discuss also about WorkIQ because that's just still don't know what that is. I have done the prompt and there's an explanation, but it doesn't make sense.
Excellent. Thank you, Cyrus. I don't know whether I can take credit for your piece around or your comments around me foreseeing the Sentinel to sort of integration into Defender or move into Defender. Because quite frankly, it was obvious for the last probably at least year and a half, 2 years that that's what Microsoft were doing. Even though Microsoft told me to my face that that wasn't what they were planning to do, but it was obvious that was going to happen. I don't know. I know a lot of our guys are sort of a bit unhappy about this, and it makes sense because they've put a lot of effort into building sort of accelerators and add-ons and whatever else, and you want to call around Sentinel now. They have to port it to the Defender side of things, which I suppose is adding a little bit of work and fuss to them. But yeah, I think this is obvious. And if they can start doing the same with some of the other portals as well, because I remember once, and I don't know whether you guys have had the same experience, but I just suspect you probably have, is that I actually had like a bookmark menu in my browser that was like, okay, this is Azure portal, this is M365 portal, this is Purview portal, this is Defender portal, this is something else. So I had like about 7 or 8 different URLs to different portals in there that I would have to go and look at just in the sort of everyday management or sort of upkeep of those environments. So the more they can integrate it without losing functionality into one screen, or at least one sort of pane of glass, using the whole, the horrible phrase that I think we've all got sick of, the better. And anything on Entra is good. So always pleased to see updates into Entra. So now I'm going to do a complete sort of shift in topic. And I know I mentioned this in the last podcast. And for those that are following me on LinkedIn or whatever, you'll know also I did do a blog post about this last week. But I thought that based on what I saw from Ignite, and bearing in mind I'm about 3 sessions into Ignite so far, so there's an awful lot of content that I haven't even touched on yet. It was obviously a lot of folks around, hey, AI is going to do everything for us. Now, I'm not going to sit there and talk about, sort of agentic on Windows and other areas, security, etc. But I'm going to sort of look at, or have been looking at, where I think that this makes more sense in my brain anyway, which is as a developer aid. Now, I didn't approach this as a developer aid. I approached this as, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. You go ahead and do it. So it almost was that sort of classic vibe coding thing. But as I said in the intro, I'm not sure that when they coined the phrase vibe coding, it was someone sitting in Visual Studio Code with React and Node systems. I think they were thinking more about Power Platform type pieces. But who knows? I could be wrong.
I think it's an entirely justified vibe coding.
Excellent. So basically what I've done, and I've created now four applications where I haven't written a single line of code. Now, before I start down this journey, I think it is important to note that I was a developer. I started my career as a developer. So I have a reasonable background knowledge of how things should work, theoretically. Not that I've actually used Node or React before. So this was 2 new technologies. And let's start off with the good. I think let's not go and start off on the down straight away. Some of the things that it was able to do with my ridiculous prompts was quite frankly amazing. Really, really was. I mean, I think you guys have seen it, and anybody that was at Ignite would have seen some of the outputs of this. Can't really talk about it here because it is IBM proprietary stuff, but some of the output was quite frankly, I looked at it and said, if I was to write this, A, I'm not sure I could, and B, it would take me probably a good couple of months to do what it did in 5 minutes, quite frankly. At least the core bits of it. I then spent ages tweaking, but the core functionality came out of it really, 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 really quickly. And with basically just like a paragraph. What else did I find that was really interesting is I found that it was able to understand imagery really nicely. So I was able to draw like a rough picture of a user interface, stick it into the chat window, say, look, I want it to look something like this. And it was able to translate that diagram into the user interface. I added a Word document which gave down a breakdown of the steps that I was expecting it to see for certain things. Again, it was able to take that Word document, understand what I was after, and implement it to 95%. What I'm going to try today, which I haven't tried previously, is I'm actually going to try and do a flow diagram in Visio. And probably, I don't know whether it's going to understand the native Visio format, but I'll take a screenshot of it and stick that into it and see whether it can actually work out the flow from that flow diagram. And if it can do that, I think that's really, really interesting. So that was the good bits. And as I said, the amount that I produced in a very short time, or I should rephrase that, the amount that it produced in such a short piece of time was absolutely phenomenal. Really, really was. Anybody who's interested that can actually go on LinkedIn and have a look at a chap called Johnny Schaub. I probably pronounced his surname wrong, so apologies, Johnny. But he did a nice LinkedIn post where there is 2 screenshots of one of the applications that I'm referring to. So go and have a look at that. And that was, say, no coding from my perspective at all. Now, the downside. I don't know if it's even really the downside. These are sort of the gotchas that I think you need to think about. And I'll be interested, David, to see whether you run into some of these when you were doing your vibe coding projects a month or so ago. So, as I said, I've done multiple projects now. It's not just one, it's multiple. And one of the biggest issues I had when I started was that Copilot Copilot plus whatever model I'd selected, so whether that was GPT, Claude, whatever, would not give you the same result each time. So I'd say, okay, I need an authentication piece. So one time it would give me with a nice modal pop-up and, worked quite nicely. The next time it gave it to me on one single screen and it failed the first time round. I had to go and tweak it a little bit. One of the other pieces that sort of came up around that is that it likes to do, or I don't know if it likes to do it, but certainly every project I've done, the first suggestion is always Node and React. So Node for the back end, React for the front end. Typically running on 2 different services as well. Well, obviously in that instance, you can't have it any other way. But so you end up having a Node backend running on, say, port 3000, for example, on your local host. And then you might have the React front end running on port 5000. It would try and manage those environments within a single terminal, which A, causes problems anyway, but B, then when you want to do things like ask it, oh, is the server running? Or can you restart that server? Or can you check this particular log that might be running off of that server? It then tries to run a command into that same terminal, which then kills the servers. So I end up having almost the first thing I do every time I now start a project, and I'll come onto this a little bit later because there are things that we can do to sort of help that process, is use the Copilot instructions file and say, look, go and create a terminal management process that says, right, always run things in separate terminals. Don't run a command on a terminal that's got one of the servers running on it. Always check to make sure the server's running before you do it. On the back end, use NodeMon, so you don't have to restart the server. It hot loads the code changes into the terminal. But that was something I had to do for every single project because it wasn't able to, I don't know, we're not even sure what the phrase is, but it was just saying, hey, I'm going to create a project using Node and React, and I'm going to run it all in one terminal, and I'm not learning from the previous mistakes. And I had the same problem with CSS and with KQL queries as well, but I'm not going to worry about the KQL queries. Debugging CSS was an absolute nightmare without getting hands on keyboard and into the CSS files. So what I ended up doing was actually I've wrote a suite. Well, I haven't written them. Copilot's written them. A suite of MCP servers that are there to do specific things. So I've got a a CSS helper MCP service that I just say, okay, go and work with this MCP server to diagnose the CSS problems. And there's a 5-step protocol in that MCP server that goes through. And generally speaking, it works quite nicely. And what I've been able to do as well is once I've fixed a problem, I ask Copilot, was there anything that the MCP server could have done to help you fix that problem quicker? I then take the output from that window, stick it in the MCP server code window and say, oi, take this feedback, improve the service. And it goes ahead and implements it. So I've now got an API layer, for want of a better word, of MCP servers that help Copilot write code and diagnose problems quicker. So I found that really interesting.
I was going to say, not API layer. You've just created your own agentic solution, Richard. Come on, get the language.
I'm showing my age. But I found that has helped so much because I'm basically able to. So I've even got another one now that does patterns. So, for example, that terminal management issue that I spoke of right at the start, there's now a pattern in inverted commas in one of those MCP servers that I just say, when I set up a new project now, go and get the pattern for manage internal servers, go and get the pattern for authentication, go and get the pattern for KQL queries. And it'll go and sort of, query that MCP agent and get what it needs to do, which I found has made a remarkable difference into the speed of what I'm doing. And again, I will point out, I haven't even touched a single line of CSS, even though I sort of know, in inverted commas, what I'm doing around that. But anyway, those projects are, well, at least the MCP servers are public. They're in GitHub. They're in a public repo. Go and have a look at them if you're interested. There is a blog post that goes into a little bit more detail about what I found, what I learned, what was working, what wasn't working. So that's on the microsoftcloudblog.com. So if you want to go and have a look on that one. And on that note, I think I will wrap that up. And unless anybody's got anything they want to comment on that one, pass it to David to start talking about Arc, which was our favorite subject when we started this podcast.
Yes. It felt rude not to have something related to Arc as part of all the Ignite stuff. I had to cover something, right? So. And there were many, many, many more. Like you say, there was 1,000+ sessions in Ignite, 460 or something that were recorded. And an awful lot of content to work through, like you're saying, Richard, and trying to cherry pick those super difficult and find the time, to be fair. So yes, I'm going to cover 3 things, as you said at the outset. So a quick reminder, there's a virtual desktop thing. I'm going to talk a bit more broadly about observability because there's so much across so many things. So I'm just going to touch on, I think, the three main points that I pulled out across sort of Foundry control plane, Azure Copilot and Purview. And then, as you said, I think it'd be super helpful for us to have a bit of a 3-way discussion on sort of one question that I keep hearing people ask, and that is, what is WorkIQ? So I think it would be super useful to get your insights on that, or even just help me feel a bit better that I'm feeling a bit thick that I haven't quite got to the bottom of it yet. So AVD, this is essentially, historically, when you looked at AVD, this meant your session hosts run in Azure, right? Fairly straightforward. You had remote desktop services that it still is, I guess, in Windows Server. I haven't looked for a while, actually. I'm assuming they're still there. But the AVD thing itself and all the management goodness that was wrapped around that was Azure only. Then we had Azure Stack HCI, and more recently Azure Local. So then you start getting that blurring between the 2 environments. And in Ignite, they've pushed that further now. So you now have AVD running on Arc managed, Arc enabled. What's the language? Is it enabled? I think it's Arc enabled, isn't it? Arc enabled servers on premises, and super interestingly, across multiple hypervisors, which I thought was really interesting. So you can now run, I believe, I'm not sure if this is the entire list. So it was Nutanix, VMware, and apparently some other Windows servers in some scenarios. I'm not too sure what they are, but again, quite interesting. Now the control plane still lives in Azure, so that aligns with all the Arc messaging, right? I believe stuff like the brokering, the gateways, diagnostics, identity, all that still live in the Azure cloud. And Arc, as we know, then becomes the glue that, where you onboard the servers into it. So they look like those first-class citizens for, policy monitoring, Defender. You care about Defender, don't you, Cyrus? Update management, all that stuff. So really, really interesting. And I guess, clearly trying to demonstrate that I got a big sense from Ignite that they're trying to move away from being a product company to a platform company. And this is a step in that direction. But equally, part of me then goes, well, what happens to the products? But anyway, I suppose that's a more existential question.
I think it's a very good question. I think Satya's been almost on record saying that that's what he wants to do, and I'll see if I can dig up the interview where he basically said this. But I think what they're looking to do primarily is actually just build a platform for agents. In effect, and not even necessarily their agents or their models, but it could be Gemini, it could be OpenAI, it could be Anthropic, to just leverage what Microsoft has got. And then they can use the operating system, especially in the enterprise. I don't think less so in the consumer area, because I think they're pulling back from the consumer area. If you look at Xbox, for example, and possibly things like the home versions of Windows, I don't know, but then the enterprise that becomes the gateway into whatever this agentic world will end up looking like.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see the journey. And I guess none of us have mentioned the obvious elephant in the room that Satya didn't present either, right?
No, and it was interesting, wasn't it? That was the first thing that struck me, is that it was Judson with kicking it off. And Satya took very much a backseat from that. And that does go back to the announcement about a couple of weeks ago where Judson was sort of, I don't know whether he was promoted, is that the right word to call it, but certainly he's become much more prominent within that sphere. We'll see what that means. I think there's interesting times around what actually Microsoft is going to be for the next year or so.
Yeah, it does feel like there's something fairly substantial that's going to be happening. It's super exciting to see. All right, I've digressed. I'm sorry. The other thing, so that really, outside of that platform thing, the other topic that I felt they hammered home quite a lot as a theme was, fair enough, we care about agents and we care about co-pilots, but the observability and governance scaffolding that goes around them, there was a lot on that. And I guess the three things, as I touched on, right, you've got observability in the context of the Foundry control plane. You've got the Azure Copilot observability stuff as well, and then the observability in Microsoft Purview. And I guess as we walk through each from the Foundry control plane, this is, I think, the observability and governance for agents in Foundry and beyond. And I'm sure I saw a diagram that kind of had all the Microsoft first-party stuff, and then another one that had like AWS and Google and GCP. Can I find that image again? No. Nope, I can't find it anywhere. I have looked. I have got about
Windows recall
50 PowerPoint slides on my machine. And I can't find it.
If they ever launch that properly, Windows recall will help you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're right. I should have watched it on my Surface Pro. You're absolutely right. So I've been busily downloading PowerPoints trying to find that one image, and I failed miserably. But the I guess that another thing I noticed, and I'm going on a lot of tangents. The use of the new or what was it called? Ravi, whatever the new company was, instead of Contoso.
Zava.
Zava.
Zava, thank you. Yeah.
So a horrible name.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that Zara is going to be very unhappy about that, and there has been a lot of court
Exactly.
cases recently, certainly in the UK, about people using fashion houses' names within
Yes.
their companies. So whether Microsoft might get
Yeah.
sued by Zara for.
And
And for anybody outside
what
the
else?
UK, Zara is a sort of a fashion chain of shops, and I say fashion, it's loosely.
So I kind of get the logic of using a fictional company to demonstrate all the things they're talking about. So why did they do that? Well, nearly everything we saw was in preview. Right,
Yeah.
there was an awful lot of the content that was announced is in preview. It will come at some point. So really, trying to ground it in that this is what it will or could look like. There was no other choice other than doing that. Although I don't know how you felt about it just felt like there was a bit too much. I like a bit of show and tell, but it kind of went too much the other way for me.
I'm probably going to come across as either very English, very grumpy, or very autistic, one of the three, or possibly all three. But I found that whole thing about, we're going to give everybody a T-shirt, let's run through it and pretend to order the T-shirts, and I found that very cringy. Sorry, Judson, and the guy from LinkedIn. But yes, that I was not a big fan of that. Perhaps it worked better in the venue. I'll have to ask Mihar or Chris or someone who was actually there. But
yeah.
And for us, it was late too. So we saw it like it was like 7, 8 p.m. So it was after business hours, a bit tired. So it was even more cringy to say, T-shirts and okay.
Yeah. Sorry to digression, but anyway, Foundry control plane, so central place to govern agents. In theory, no matter where they're built, so it'd be super interesting to see that and understand what that means. In theory, it gives you the tracing of tasks and tool calls across an agent graph, I think. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and then you can sort of do some red teaming stuff and policy checks and testing for prompt injection and data exposure and all that stuff. So I think that could be really, really interesting. I keep remembering things as I'm talking. I'm sorry. The other thing was that there was a big push to make agents first-class citizens, and I think that's something that one of the adjunct things that you said, right, and where you hark back to one of the past episodes, because I think I said that and I was like, they're just going to be other users, just different sorts of users, right? And that definitely came over there. I'm running late, aren't I? So as a Copilot observability, so the idea here is when you're in Azure trying to troubleshoot, make that conversation like you're having a conversation with an SRE who has like access to a bunch of data. They've got access to all the monitor data in the head, for argument's sake, And they did quite a good demo of that, where I think there's a Kubernetes issue, and it talked through identifying what the issue was, and then getting the Copilot to remediate it. So that was a super. It looked really good, and I think I've lambasted the Azure Copilot agents in the past, but I think it's getting there now, right? What else? The Purview. Purview. So I guess the idea here is, again, to have that security and compliance view of agents and co-pilots across Microsoft and beyond. And I didn't quite get to the and beyond bit. I'm going to be really interested to see how that in practicality works, because I know you have sort of OneLake, which will bring in data. It doesn't copy it, obviously, as we know, but or doesn't have to copy it. So you can see it that way. But how does Purview work with other external data sets? So that's going to be interesting. But it gives you that observability within and data security posture management, a bit of a tongue twister, so that it gives you that. It gives you another inventory, I think, of what agents are doing, across sort of the M365, Copilot Studio, Foundry, and some third-party agents. And again, it'd be interesting to see where that works. And it gives you these, from the Purview perspective, sort of risk levels and patterns per agent. So you know what agents are touching what sensitive data most frequently and all that good stuff. So then I think they, again, did a demo highlighting how they, it flagged an agent that was connecting to data perhaps it shouldn't be, or it was trying to be exfiltrated, and then they did work in Purview to ensure that couldn't happen. So yeah, it feels like sort of security people now are first-class citizens, I think, whereas you think about the Azure portal and what it used to be for the IT pro, it's almost flipped completely the other way now, which is quite nice. Is there anything?
Yeah, you wanted to do a WorkIQ bit.
Mm-hmm.
I did, didn't I? I did, didn't I? So,
and don't ask me, I didn't understand it.
So I think, to begin with, I thought it was essentially graph and a couple of things stitched together. So it was just a new name for that stuff. But it doesn't, is it what Microsoft do really, really well, which is just a new name for stuff that exists?
Yes.
And just confuse everyone. Is it a bit of marketing?
It is marketing.
And so they say it's the intelligence layer that sits behind M365 Copilot and all these reams of new agents, right? So what I've taken away is that you've got your agents, you've got your data. Graph is data, right, in this sense. And now what it's doing is adding almost is it a memory layer? It's not quite a memory layer, but it's
so there's a context thing and there's a memory layer that sort of help with that. I was going to say whether I should actually say this or not, but whilst you were talking, David, and someone might have heard me typing in the background, I thought I'd ask Copilot, is there actually anything new in the WorkIQ? and it came back. Great question. Honestly, WorkIQ isn't a brand new concept in terms of underlying tech, but it is a new formalized layer and branding that Microsoft introduced to unify several capabilities that were previously scattered across Microsoft Graph, semantic indexing, and personalization features in Copilot.
Exactly. So it's marketing.
So there you go. M365 Copilot thinks it's a rebranding exercise. So there you go.
It is. It is.
I think, it go on.
I was going to say that context is interesting because I didn't mention this actually in my diatribe or whatever you want to call it in the middle. But context was very interesting within GitHub Copilot. Because I don't know, David, whether you noticed this or not, but every time you started a new chat session, it had no concept
Yeah.
of what you'd done in the previous chat session. Now, you might be able to get away with doing all this in one chat session, but there is a token limit where it kicks you out anyway, which I've actually managed to reach. But also, you might have noticed that it slows down, and you get the summarizing conversation prompt that sits there for like 5 minutes. So it is actually relatively good practice to create a new session every so often. But when you do, it has no concept of what you've previously done. So context is really, really important. So what I've done within GitHub, within VS Code, I should say, is every time I do anything major, either at the end of the day or when I do a commit, whatever it might well be, I say, look, update session notes. So there's a whole folder now in my projects called session notes that are dates, timestamps. And when I start a new session, I go, oi, go and read the Copilot instructions, go and read the architectural decisions and the to-do lists, but also go and review all the session notes so that the new instance has, in theory, all the information that have been created from the previous ones. So anyway, a slight tangent because I should have mentioned that in that session, but session management context is really, really important.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will also think of sovereignty. I know it's annoying to talk about that, but I know with Azure Local they were talking about you can run now your own GPU on-prem and use like the native Azure AI stuff you can use. But WorkIQ, it looks like an overlay of this context they have somewhere, but it means that Microsoft and the US can have the context of every company and how they work, because it's contextualized. It reads all your emails. So I know when you say read all the emails, if you think like a French or German, it's like, are you sure? Are you really doing that? Or can we control that? So I'm excited by the potential of scalability of what you can do now with all the native context without blowing up your tokens, when you do a chat. But is it secure? And like we will see after all the marketing hype is gone.
The sovereign cloud is going to be really important, I think, for Europe, where we, as in the IBM, we are really interested in looking into what we can do around that within the European context. And we are one of the, I know going off on an IBM sort of tangent here, which I should disclose, but I'm also very conscious that we are at the top of our recording slot. So we might save that conversation for the next episode to go through. Before we wrap up, I'd just like to say again, if you have got to this point in the podcast and you haven't clicked on the like, subscribe, follow, whatever button that you might have on there, please do so. I don't know whether David and Cyrus, you have any final thoughts to share with the audience?
I have, but do you guys have time for 2 minutes?
I probably not.
Okay. Next time.
This is the joys of recording this just before the sort of workday sort of kicks in to go, is that certainly me and David, I think, have got calls that have just probably started.
Okay, no problem. Next time.
So on that work-related note, I will bid everybody farewell. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again in 2 weeks' time.